Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Good morning. Hey, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? We're about to get started. Oh. So it's really terrible when you say you're about to get started and the director of the institute leaves the room. But it's very nice to see you all here. Salman, we are ready to go. Should we? Good. So everyone, welcome to the Mittal Institute's first live symposium after COVID, where we're all in person. It's a wonderful return to normalcy. It's wonderful to welcome all of you here. I see many people whom I've gotten to know very well over the last year. Oh my gosh, excuse me. For those of you who are joining us online, welcome to you also. It's wonderful to have you. I know that we have people joining us from the region and also from England. So it's wonderful to have you. I'm sorry you cannot be here with us. Next year, we look forward to that. For those of you who were here yesterday and those who weren't, I just want to recap that we began this year's annual end of year events with an extraordinary talk. We had cook, food authority, and actress Madhur Jaffrey in conversation with Abhijit Banerjee. It was one of the most delightful conversations I've heard, where in the most personal way, we touched on some of the deepest themes that connect to South Asia, everything from women's rights to food, to identity, to politics, to culture, and especially taste and what's delicious and why we eat so much of such a variety of food in South Asia and as South Asians everywhere. We will post that online so all of you can see it. I just want to say, today's symposium, it's the culmination of a year of activity for us. It's a wide range of topics, but they do fit into a theme because we are developing a very large project. We launched it this spring in India with a conference on climate change. And this project on climate change includes everything from work on the ground with partner organizations, and I'm about to introduce two of the people who are leading one of our partner organizations in India, in Bangladesh, to, as we expand it, to work in the arts, in culture, etc. And so part of this conference is really inspired by the work we're doing, but then other parts of this conference are connected. It's with scholars that we are working with groups within Harvard that we're working with, and it's also for work that we would like to expand on. So that the information is up there in front of you, so I don't want to take too much time. We're starting late. I want to get us started with our first panel. Unless Tarun, would you like to say a few words? Oh, okay. So I'd like to start with our first panel, which is Climate Change, Gender and Labor, a conversation with Rima Ben and Sakhi Ben, led by Maya here. And let me just get my notes. Excuse me. And so these are people who've accomplished a lot, and I want to make sure I don't miss out on introducing them properly. So we have here with us Rima Ben Nanavati. Rima Ben is the General Secretary of SEWA. SEWA is the largest union of informal sector workers in the world. She has been working with the group since 1984. It works to provide full employment and self-reliance to the union's over 2 million members. So as part of the work, every time I think that my job is hard, I think of what she's doing. She oversees almost 5,000 self-help groups, 160 cooperatives, and 15 economic federations across India and in all 7 South Asian countries. She also heads the ICT cell of SEWA to help develop custom-designed mobile apps for women for women farmers and establishing links for them with online e-tailing platforms so that they have a broad global market access for what they are doing. She's also currently a member of the Advisory Council on Gender at the World Bank Group and a member of the Global Commission on the Future for the International Labour Organization, where she has been the only commissioner representing unions of informal sector workers, self-employed workers, and rural workers. She also serves on the UN's Technical Working Group on Energy Action to advance other SDGs. And she has received the 4th highest civilian award in the Republic of India for her distinguished contribution to India's social life. Reema Ben, it's really an honor to have you with us here today. And, I want to say, because I'm going to introduce her colleague, Sakhi Ben, that SEWA is one of those extraordinary organizations that is doing life-changing, dramatic, transformative work under the radar all the time. And as someone who worked in the news for a long time, as we look at the news and think about it and think about all the things that are going wrong, there are incredible and extraordinary energies under the surface that don't get the attention they need, that are transforming the world for so much the better. We're really happy to have them as partners, and it's inspiring and really wonderful to be able to present some of that work here. With Reema Ben is Sakhi Ben Ahir. Sakhi Ben Ahir is a second-generation leader at SEWA. She rose up from the grassroots, and so she's part of the success of SEWA, and now she's risen up to become one of its leaders. She's the youngest of 5 daughters. She's the first one to be educated in her community. Her education includes postgraduate work in the arts and a diploma in teachers training. And she still continues at the same time to practice the traditional occupations of her community: agriculture, animal husbandry, and handcrafts. She's a master trainer in regenerative farming practices. She runs a supplementary coaching for young girls and boys in her villages. And very rightfully, both the larger community in India and her own community has celebrated her for her extraordinary achievements and for the work she does. So, Sakhi Ben, welcome. As we say in Kathiawar, bhale padhariya. Reema Ben and Sakhi Ben will talk about their work, and then they'll be in conversation with our own colleague, Maya Jasanoff. Maya Jasanoff is the Coolidge Professor of History and ex-Dean Nancy Yang Professor of Arts and Sciences at Harvard. For the last 4 years, she has also held a position as visiting professor in the School of Arts and Sciences at Ahmedabad University, and so she's very au fait with the work of SEWA. She's the author of 3 books: Edge of Empire, Liberty's Exiles, and The Dawn Watch, which have won accolades including the National Book Critics Circle Award, the Kundal Prize in History, the George Washington Book Prize, and the Wyndham Campbell Prize for Nonfiction. She writes widely about history, literature, and world affairs for publications including The New Yorker and The New York Times. I'm happy to say she's also occasionally a guest for NPR, my former alma mater. Thank you very much for agreeing to be part of this conversation. Reema Ben and Sakhi Ben, may I invite you to come up and speak?
नमस्ते, મારું નામ શક્તિ છે, મારું ગામ ધોકાવાડા છે, તાલુકો સાંતરપુર છે, જિલ્લો પાટણ છે. હું સેવા અમદાવાદમાંથી આવું છું. સેવા સાથે 10 વર્ષથી જોડાયેલી છું. મારા મમ્મી પણ સેવા સાથે 35 વર્ષથી જોડાયેલા છે. હું સેવાની ત્રીજી પેઢી છું અને સેવા ઉન્નત બજાર કંપનીની શેર હોલ્ડર સભ્ય બેન છું. ખેતીનું કામ કરું છું અને ખેતીમાં એક માસ્ટર ટ્રેનર પણ છું.
She's Sakhiban. She's been a member for Seva for the last 10 years now. She's the third generation member of Seva. Her mother has been a member of Seva for 35 years now. She is also a master trainer in agriculture. She comes from village Dhokawada in Patan district in Santalpur block, and she belongs to Seva.
મારા વિશે કહું તો અમારો વિસ્તાર એ પાકિસ્તાની સરહદે આવેલો હતો. પહેલા અમારી જોડે પીવા માટે પાણી ન હતું, ના કોઈ રોજગારી હતી. અમારી જોડે અમારી જે પરંપરાગત જે અમે કપડા પહેર્યા છે એ કારીગરી તો હતી, પરંતુ એમાંથી કેવી રીતે રોજગારી મેળવવી એ અમને કોઈ ખબર નથી. પરંતુ જ્યારે ઈલાબેન આયા, રીમાબેન આયા, તો એમને જોયું કે બેનો પાસે એમની પરંપરાગત કારીગરી તો છે, પણ બેનો એમને બહાર નથી લાવી શકતા. ત્યારે બેને અમને એક અમારું જૂથ બનાવ્યું, અમને સંગઠનમાં જોડ્યા. પછી ધીરે ધીરે અમે જ્યારે સેવામાં જતા થયા, અમને જે અમારું કામ હતું એમાંથી રોજગારી મળતી થઈ, ત્યારે અમને બહુ ખુશી મળી કે અમારું જે કામ છે તેમાંથી અમારી પાસે કશું આવક નથી, ત્યારે અમને રોજગારી મળવા લાગી.
I come from a very dry desert area, and we had to very often migrate in search of work and livelihood. It's bordering Pakistan, the village where I live. We also did not have, there was scarcity of water, and therefore people had to migrate year after year in search of work and income. We did have our traditional embroidery skills, but did not know how to use it to earn livelihood. It was almost 30 years back that when Seva came to our village and we were organized, and it helped us turn our traditional skill into a means of livelihood.
એમ કે જ્યારે અમે સંગઠન બનાવ્યું પછી અમે ધીરે ધીરે અમારો એમ કે જે અમારી રોજગારી વધતી ગઈ સેવાના લીધે, પછી અમે અમારી ખુદની એક ઉન્નત બજાર કંપની બનાવી કે દુનિયામાં કંપનીઓ તો બહુ બધી છે, પરંતુ એના જે માલિક અને મેનેજરો છે એ બધા મોટા મોટા લોકો છે, પરંતુ અમારી ઉન્નત બજાર સેવા ઉન્નત બજાર કંપની એવી છે કે જેના માલિક અને મેનેજર અમે ખુદ બહેનો છીએ, અને એમાંથી જે કાચા માલની ખરીદીથી કરીને વેચાણ સુધીનું અમે ખુદ બહેનો વેચાણ કરી છીએ, અને અમારી ખુદની એક હંસીબા દુકાન પણ છે, અને અમારી હંસીબા બ્રાન્ડ પણ છે.
So as we started organizing and started earning using our traditional skills, that itself became the only source of livelihood for our families in the area. And gradually the number of women joining Seva started growing. So in order to give sustained work and income to the families, we were organized into our own company, which is known as the Seva Trade Facilitation Center. You would have seen hundreds of companies in the world, but this is one company where the owners and the managers are women artisans like me. We do everything. We handle everything from procurement to processing to production to marketing. We have our own brand Hansiba, which has shops in Ahmedabad, in Delhi, and we also do online marketing.
એટલે કે અમને રોજગારી તો મળવા લાગી, અમારી કંપની પણ બની, પરંતુ અમારો વિસ્તાર એવો હતો કે જ્યાં શિક્ષણનું કોઈ મહત્વ જ નહોતું. દીકરાઓને તો તોય ભણાવતા, પણ દીકરીઓને કોઈ ભણાવતા જ નહીં. પરંતુ જ્યારે ઈલાબેને અહીંયા જ્યારે અમેરિકામાંથી હાર્વર્ડ યુનિવર્સિટીમાંથી પોતે શિક્ષણ મેળવેલું હતું, ત્યારે એમને થયું કે ના, એમ કે દીકરીઓને પણ એમ કે ભણાવવી જોઈએ. પછી જ્યારે અમારી એમ કે ઈલાબેને અમારા માટે એમ કે શિક્ષણનું પણ કર્યું, ત્યારે અમારા સમાજમાં કોઈ ભણાવતું જ નહીં. પરંતુ મારા મમ્મી જ્યારે સેવામાં હતા તો એમને કીધું કે ના, દીકરીઓને કેમ ના ભણાવવી જોઈએ, કેમ કે બહાર નીકળે એટલે બધું જોયું કે ભણતરનું કેટલું મહત્વ છે. પછી હું સૌ પ્રથમ અમારા સમાજમાં ભણી, મેં BA MA પૂરું કર્યું, અને હાલમાં અમારા સમાજમાં દીકરાઓ કરતા પણ દીકરીઓ ઘણી પડે છે, પણ એ ક્યારે બધું જ્યારે અમે સેવામાં હતા ત્યારે.
So once we started work and income, migration came down. But in our community, education was not a big priority. There was only 3% education in my whole community. And that too, the male or the boys used to be educated, not girls like me. But once my mother started going to Seva and she started attending different meetings and trainings, she understood the value of education. So I was the first girl from the whole community to be sent to school. And today I have done my master's in arts, and I've also done a teacher's training program. And today I'm very happy to share with you that today, after almost 20 years, there are more girls who are enrolled into school than boys in my whole area and my community.
અને એમ કે જ્યારે અમે આવું જે અમારું ભરતકામ હતું એમાંથી તમને રોજગારી મળી, પરંતુ અમે ખેતી પણ કરી છે અને પશુપાલનનું કરીએ છીએ. ત્યારે અમારી જે અમે જેવી અમારી ઉન્નત બજાર કંપની છે એવી અમારી ખુદની રૂડી કંપની પણ છે, કે જેની અંદર અમે જે ખેતીની અંદર ઉત્પાદન કરીએ છીએ તેનું અમે અમારી રૂડી કંપનીની અંદર ઓનલાઈન માર્કેટિંગ કરીએ છીએ. અને એની અંદર અમારે જે ઘરે બેઠા અમારા જે ગરીબ જે નાની વર્ગના મધ્યમ વર્ગના જે ખેડૂતો છે તે પોતે પોતાનું અનાજ પોતાના સભ્યોને કેવી રીતે પહોંચાડે, તો મેં એનું પેકિંગ પણ કરી છે. અને અમારી રૂડી બહેનો હોય છે તે ગામડે ગામડે જઈને એનું માર્કેટિંગ પણ કરે છે, જેના લીધે એને જે ખેતીમાંથી પણ આવક મળે છે અને પોતે જે બીજા જોડે વેચવા જાય છે તો એમાંથી પણ એને રોજગારી મળે છે.
So we do started earning from our traditional skill, but what about the men in the community? How do they also get enough work? And so that's how agriculture was also revived in our desert area. And today, like we have Hansiba as our brand for crafts, we have Rudy, which is our own for-profit company for small farmers. And under our company, we procure, we grade, process, and package and redistribute it amongst the villages itself. We have our own mobile application through which the customers can place orders and we provide them at the doorstep. So this also gives fair returns to the farmers at the doorstep. The women get employment as well as the rural households get food security.
અને એમ કે જ્યારે અમે જે અમારું રૂડીનું તો અમે કરી છે, સાથે સાથે હાલમાં એમ કે બધા જે ધાન્ય પાકો છે તો એ વિસરતા જાય છે અને ખાવાના હાલમાં બહુ બધા શોખ હોય, તો એમાં અમે અમારું કમલા કાફે પણ શરૂ કર્યું છે, જેની અંદર અમે અમારું ટ્રેડિશનલ બધું ખાવાનું રાખીએ, જેમ કે બાજરીના રોટલા છે, બાજરીના બિસ્કેટ છે, એ બધું અમારું ટ્રેડિશનલ વસ્તુ રાખી છે, જેના અંદરથી જે વસ્તુ છે અમારી ગામડાની જે બહેનો છે એની જ વસ્તુઓ ત્યાં આવે છે અને એમાંથી જે વસ્તુઓ બનાવી છે તેના પૈસા પણ અમારી બહેનોને જ અમને મળે છે.
So everybody these days in the villages also want to or have fast food, and therefore a lot of our coarse grains are forgotten. So how do we bring those forgotten coarse grains back into circulation? And that's where we have our own food center called Kamla, where we also make bread, biscuits, cream rolls, everything using the traditional coarse grains. We do not use any white flour, but only use millets, and everything that is sold at Kamla is sourced from the members of Seva, so fruits, vegetables, pulses, spices, cereals, and that's how the urban customers also get educated and the rural customers also get better food and also better returns.
જ્યારે કોરોના જેવી મહામારી આવી ત્યારે અમને એમ કે બહુ ડર હતો કે હવે અમે શું કરશું, પરંતુ જ્યારે અમારી જે રૂડી કંપની હતી એમાં અમને ખબર હતી કે અમે ઘરે બેઠા, કેમ કે બધું બંધ થઈ ગયેલું હતું, બહાર અમે કશું વેચાણ નતા કરી શકતા, પરંતુ જ્યારે અમારી રૂડી કંપનીમાં અમે ઓનલાઈન અમારા જે સભ્ય હતા તેનું વેચાણ કરાયું અને અમે ઘરે બેઠા એમ કે જે પોતાનો માલ હતો એ પડ્યો ના રહ્યો અને અમારી રૂડી કંપનીમાં અમે ખરીદ્યું, એટલે બહેનોને જે પૈસાની જરૂર હતી એ ત્યારે એમને કોરોનામાં પણ મળી ગયું.
So I want to share with you what is the importance of having our own companies. And when COVID struck, we were all very much concerned as to what is going to now, the future going to be like. But we had our own company, Rudy, we had our own Seva Trade Facilitation Center, and we had our own mobile application. So we started sourcing from the small farmers and then redistributing. As a result, even during the peak harvesting season, the farmers did not have to suffer the losses and the rural households did not have to go without food. So that's the importance where, when the producers themselves are the owners and the managers of the company, we are immediately able to identify the need and service the needs of the members as well.
અને હાલમાં એમ કે આ જે વાતાવરણ બદલે છે, ક્લાઇમેટ ચેન્જ, એમાં અમારે સૌથી વધુ મુશ્કેલી જો પડતી હોય તો જે ગરીબ બહેનો છે, જે ખેત મજૂર બહેનો છે, મીઠા કામદાર બહેનો છે, ઘરે બેસીને જે બહેનો કામ કરે છે એને સૌથી વધુ એનો સામનો કરવો પડે છે, કેમ કે એના લીધે બહેનોને જે રોજગારી જે સમય જોતી હોય એ ટાઈમે મળતી નથી, કેમ કે ઘડી ઘડી જ્યારે વાતાવરણ બદલે છે તો જે ગરીબ બહેનો છે, દાખલા તરીકે મીઠાની કામદાર બહેનો છે, જે 8 મહિના ઠંડની અંદર રહી અને પોતે શિયાળો અને ઉનાળો એકલા તડકા અને ગરમી જે ઠંડી છે એમાં મીઠું પકડતી હોય, ઓચિતાનો જ્યારે વરસાદ આવે તો એ બહેનોને આખા વર્ષની જે કમાણી છે એમાંથી એના પોતાના જે છોકરાઓ છે એનું ગુજરાન કરવાનું હોય છે અને પોતાનું કરવાનું હોય છે, તો એક જ સમય જ્યારે ઓચિતો વરસાદ આવે તો એમનું પૂરું થઈ જાય, ત્યારે એ બેનને એક જ એમ કે દુઃખનો જ્યારે ડુંગર પડે એવું થાય છે, કેમ કે એને મરવા સિવાય બીજું કઈ એમ કે સૂચતું નથી કે હવે શું કરવું એમ.
બોલી લો.
અને બીજું એ કે એમાં અમે જ્યારે આવો જે વાતાવરણ બદલાય છે તો એના માટે અમે આખો એક સેવા દ્વારા ઝુંબેશ ચાલુ કર્યો છે. પહેલું અમે એમ કે સર્વે કર્યું કે એના માટે આપણે શું કરવું. તો બહેનોને પ્રશ્ન પૂછી છે કે બહેનોને પહેલા આવું ના થતું, હવે કેમ થાય છે. તો બહેનો પાસેથી અલગ અલગ જોવા મળે કે પહેલા તો આવા આપણે જે રસ્તાઓ છે જે સિમેન્ટના જે ડામરના ના હોતા, એમ કે જે ધૂળના હોતા, એના લીધે. બીજું કે જે વાતાવરણ છે તેમાં એમ કે બહુ બધી એમ કે જેવી લાઇટ છે એનો પણ આપણે બહુ ઉપયોગ કરી છે, જેમ કે કોલસાનો બહુ વધારે ઉપયોગ, જેના લીધે વાતાવરણમાં કાર્બન ડાયોક્સાઇડનું જે પ્રમાણ છે એ પણ વધારે હોય છે, જેના લીધે આવા બનાવો બનતા હોય છે. પણ આપણે એને એમ કે જે હાલમાં જે યુવા યુગ છે એને આપણે કોઈ પણ એવી જે ટેકનોલોજી મળી રહી છે એનો આપણે એમ નથી કહી શકતા કે તમે બંધ કરો, પણ એના સામે આપણે કેવી રીતે ટકી રહેવું, એના માટે આપણે શું પગલા ભરવા, એ બધું અમે અમારા સેવા દ્વારા એક આખો ઝુંબેશ ચાલુ કરી રહ્યા છીએ. તેના દ્વારા અમારા જે મીઠાના કામદાર બહેનો છે તો એ રણમાં રહે છે, તેને બહુ બધી તકલીફો પડતી હોય છે. તો એના માટે અમે સોલાર વોટર કુલરની વ્યવસ્થા કરી છે કે જે ગામડાની ગરીબ બહેનો છે તો એને ઠંડુ પાણી પણ પીવા માટે મળી રહે. અને રણમાં ઝૂંપડા બાંધીને બહેનો રહેતા હોય છે તો એના જે ઝૂંપડાઓ છે કેમ કે એમનું તાપમાન બહુ વધારે હોય છે, 40 થી 45 ડિગ્રીનું હોય છે, તો એની અંદર રહી પણ નથી શકતા, એમનો ખોરાક પણ બગડી જતો હોય છે. તો એના માટે શું કરવું, તો એના માટે પણ અમે એમને એમનો જે ખોરાક છે એ રાખે એના માટે અમે એને એની પણ એમ વ્યવસ્થા કરી આપી છીએ. અને પાણી તો એકદમ એમ કે ગરમ હોતું હોય છે, એમ કે પીવા માટે પણ નથી હોતું. તો એના માટે શું કરવું, તો એના માટે પણ અમે એમને જે સિમેન્ટની ટાંકીઓ છે જમીનની અંદર રાખી અને બહેનો પી શકે એવું પણ અમે એમના જોડે રહીને કરતા હોઈએ છીએ. અને બીજું
So I was just sharing with you all that we could do, but there are challenges ahead of us as well. And the biggest challenge that we are facing currently is the climate change. People in the villages don't understand what is climate change. How do you mitigate it? How do you adapt to it? Everybody feels that maybe something that Mother Earth and the nature are very upset. But workers like us who are small farmers, or the salt pan workers who go and spend about 8 to 9 months in the desert and they work, and when there is suddenly an unseasonal rain or a cyclone, their entire year's efforts are washed away. And how does families like that survive? So that's our biggest challenge. And Seva has taken up a whole campaign which we call it as the Swachh Akash, which is clean our skies. How do you build cleaner skies? When you ask the villagers that, what do you think, why there are all these climatic changes, the elders feel that everything has changed. We now have tar roads, we have cement and concrete houses, and as a result of that, it heats up the villages. Or the young people feel that, they do need technology, they do need to have mobility, access to mobility. You cannot stop all that, but what is the alternative to that? And that is what, through our campaign, we are trying to work on. To give you some examples, like I was referring to the salt pan workers who work in the desert for about 8 to 9 months. Temperatures go as high up to 45 degrees, but last year it went up to 51 degrees centigrade. So how do they switch over from diesel pumps to solar pumps? How do you bring solar water coolers in the desert so that, the water also boils and the food turns rancid? How does the women and workers and their families survive in such hostile conditions? So those are the kinds of efforts that we are making under our campaign of mitigating the climate change efforts.
એમ કે જ્યારે હવે જે બધી વસ્તુઓ બની રહી, એમ કે જે બનાવો બની રહ્યા છે એના સામે ટકી રહેવા આપણે શું કરવું? એના માટે અમે હાલમાં ડેમો માટે 300 જેવા જે અમારા હરિયાળા ગામ શરૂ કર્યા છે કે જેની અંદર જે કાર્બન ડાયોક્સાઇડ છે જેનું પ્રમાણ ઓછું કેવી રીતે કરી શકાય. એના માટે અમે જે ખેતી કરીએ છીએ તો એની અંદર અમે સોલાર પંપ છે એનો ઉપયોગ કરીએ છીએ કે ના કે ડીઝલનો કે ના લાઇટનો. અને બીજું એ છે કે જે લાઇટના બધા ઝાટકા મશીન આવતા હોય છે તો એની સામે અમે એવું કરીએ છીએ કે સોલાર ઝાટકા મશીનનો ઉપયોગ કરી અને સોલાર ટ્રેમ્પ લાઇટનો ઉપયોગ કરી. બીજું એ કે બાયોગેસ, હાલમાં જે ગેસ વપરાય છે તો એ જે રાંધણ ગેસ હોય છે તેની કિંમત જે અમારી બહેનો છે તે ગરીબ છે, કેમ કે એટલા બધા એમ કે એમનું ઘર હોય છે તે સિટીથી બહુ દૂર હોય છે, તો ત્યાં લેવા જવાનો ખર્ચો અને જે હાલની કિંમતો છે એ પણ વધારે હોય છે. એના માટે અમે બાયોગેસ પણ શરૂ કર્યા છે કે જેની અંદર પોતાને કેમ કે પશુપાલનનો ધંધો તો હોય જ છે, તો એ બાયોગેસથી એમને જે એમના ઘરના 6 થી 7 સભ્યો હોય છે તો એ પોતે 2 ટાઈમ રાંધવાનું પણ બનાવી શકે છે અને એમને જે ખાતર થાય છે એ પોતાની ખેતીની અંદર પણ ઉપયોગ કરી શકે છે, જેના લીધે એમને જે બાયોગેસ જે રાંધણ ગેસના પૈસા પણ ના દેવા પડે અને એમને ફ્રીમાં ગેસ પણ મળી રહે અને ખેતીમાં સારો જે ખાતર જોઈએ એ પણ મળી રહેશે.
But small efforts may not really help mitigate the effects of climate change. So we are now working on how do you have green villages, and as a result of that, some 1,000 villages have adopted different. We do household energy planning and budgeting, and how much is the affordability of every household. Depending on that, we do the energy planning. How do you start using clean energy or green energy? So we have, instead of diesel engines, they start using solar pumps for irrigation in the villages. We have solar fencing, so that instead of using electricity, they can then keep away the animals. We have solar trap lights, and the biggest that we see is the impact of biodigesters. Every household has cattle, and either they were using fuel wood or cow dung cake for cooking, and that used to result into a lot of smoke as well as a lot of respiratory problems for the villages. Switching over to LPG was also effective, but then how do you refill the LPG cylinders? You had to travel long distances, and when you went there, the cylinder was not available. Plus, the prices started going up, and so the biodigesters have become very popular. As the cow dung waste is used, which converts into gas, which is used for cooking easily. If you have 2 cattle, it cooks for 6 to 7 members of the family, and the slurry is used as a manure in the farms. So that's how we make green villages. And then how do you take it? How do you incentivize the villages which turn to green villages? At least 80% of the households in the villages have to use 2 or 3 of these different techniques, so that the village becomes a green village.
અને આમ તો અમારી સેવાએ અમારી ગરીબ બહેનો માટે બહુ બધું કર્યું છે, કેમ કે જેટલું કહીએ એટલું ઓછું છે, કેમ કે અમારી જોડે એટલો બધો ટાઈમ પણ નથી. પરંતુ અમારી જે તમે અમને અહીંયા બોલવા માટે મોકો આપ્યો, એટલે મારી 25 લાખ સેવાની સભ્ય બહેનો હતી. તમારો બધાનો ખૂબ ખૂબ આભાર.
It is a journey of almost 5 decades that I would like to share on behalf of our members, but I was given only 7 minutes. So I would stop here. But I am really very grateful on behalf of our 2.5 million members for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to share our experiences and the challenges ahead of us. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks to you, Saki Ben, and Rima Ben for translating. I've had the chance over the last few years to visit Ahmedabad and to go to Seva. And it's really one of the most uplifting experiences that I've had in many years. And I think it's kind of a cliche to talk about, heartwarming things and all of that. And, I don't, when I say uplifting, I think what has appealed to, what spoke to me was something about the actual practical work that was being done. I visited the bank, for example, and there were multi-generational families there too, where you could see that, the daughter of a mother who had been involved in the organization was getting opportunities that had not been available, et cetera. There was something just remarkable about the on the ground work. And I'd like to invite both of you to speak in to various ways in which I hope we can draw some of that texture out for the audience here and online in a little bit greater detail, particularly in light of the ways in which here in the US right now, we're seeing a real renewal in labor organizing. We're seeing different kinds of community organization and ways in which community aid has been activated, in particular, of course, in light of the COVID pandemic. And third element, I think, of what inspired Seva was the women's movement. And of course, we've also seen with the Women's March, most notably, kind of galvanizing efforts on that front here in the US as well. And yet, I think looking at these areas from a US perspective, I've been struck at certain areas of sort of tension or difficulty that we've been facing, which I would also like to hear a little bit about, how Seva can contribute to our conversations. So let me perhaps begin by asking something that, again, came through so clearly in Sakiben's remarks, which is this kind of transgenerational legacy and work of Seva. And I'm wondering, both of you have been involved in the organization for a long time and, through the generations. How have you found that the work of Seva has sort of on the ground adapted to the emergence of a new generation into the work? Yes, of course. Please.
Sakiben, Mayaben.
એટલે કે જે અમારી જે ત્રીજી પેઢી છે, જેમ કે મારા મમ્મી કરતા હતા અને હું પણ કરું છું, મારા દાદી પણ કરતા હતા. અમારી જે અમે ભણ્યા ખરા, પરંતુ અમારી જે પરંપરાગત કારીગરી છે એ અમે નથી છોડી. એટલે એક કારણ એ છે કે અમે સેવા સાથે જોડાયેલા છીએ. અને બીજું એ કે અમારા જે દીકરીઓ છે એને જે ખેતી કામ કદાચ કરીએ છીએ, તો ખેતીની અંદર પણ અમે ખુદ ભલે ખેતી કરી છે, પણ એને એક માસ્ટર ટ્રેનર તરીકે અમે તૈયાર કરી છે કે જે બીજાને એમ કે તૈયાર કરે. તો એ પણ એના લીધે પણ અમારે જે નવી પેઢી છે એ સાથે સાથે જોડાઈ રહી છે. અમે એકને જોડીને બીજાને છોડી દે એવું નથી કરતા, પણ મારી મમ્મી છે તો મને પણ તૈયાર કરે સેવા દ્વારા, કેમ કે મારામાં જે વિકાસ જે આવડે છે એને સેવા દ્વારા એવી રીતે તાલીમ આપે છે કે એને કેવી રીતે મારે લાવવી એમ. તો એવી રીતે અમે એકબીજા સાથે જોડાયેલા રહી છીએ.
So Sakiben's response to your question that the transgenerational, legacy and how do you adapt on the ground? And Sakiben is saying that my mother was also a member of Seva and I'm also a member of Seva. There are third generation, fourth generation members as well. To give you an example, craft was the traditional skill through which we were able to, build our livelihoods. So even if, the other and third generation members have gone to schools and colleges, we did not give up our traditional skill. And that is how do you blend modern education with the traditional skills? And that is why Seva has remained so relevant to even younger members of Seva like me. Also, if you look into agriculture, everybody felt that their parents did not study and therefore they practiced farming or agriculture. But for the young farmers who are, educated, we have a cadre of master trainers. So they use modern technology and train the farmers to adapt, to bring in newer technology. So that is how I think the organization remains relevant and makes the younger generation feel that they also have decent and dignified work. So to add to what Sakiben has also just said, and what your question was, so Seva was founded way back in 1972 by our late founder Ela Bhatt, by with just 12 women in a public garden in the city of Ahmedabad, and we complete 50 years of organizing with 2.5 million members. That in itself shows that it's a 5-decade-long journey, and that's how Seva has still remained relevant. It also makes us India's single largest women workers organization. But I think to your question, and is that, what is Seva? That is very important to understand. Is Ela Bhatt Seva, or is Sakiben, or is Jyotiben, or myself Seva? No, I think Seva is women workers, and women workers are Seva. When the members feel a sense of ownership and belongingness, when the members participate and design their own programs based on what their issues or what their needs are, that makes the organization much more relevant and much more grounded. And therefore, I think very often people find it very confusing as well that, oh, is this Ilaban Seva? Which is that Seva? Is it Seva Bank? The union is a Seva? Is it an organization? Is it an ideology, a movement? Seva in Gujarat, or, Seva in Assam, or Seva in Sri Lanka. And this was explained to us on the 12th of April, 2002, the day when Seva completed 50 years of its organizing. And I would just like to summarize here, and what Ilaban told us that day was that 50 years have already gone by. All we have to now do is think of the next 50 years ahead of us, and how does Seva remain relevant still to the younger members for the next 50 years. So the kind of future of Seva we can still build is on us. And that is what is the key, that how does Seva remain relevant. And we spoke about the kind of Seva we need to continue building. And some of the responses to you is that at Seva, we come together as poor, as women, and as workers, no matter what caste or community or religion we belong to. And we come together to build our collective strength in our fight against poverty. We don't build our collective strength to fight against a contractor or a government, or, but fight against anyone, but be with each other in overcoming poverty. How do we be into the mainstream? And therefore, I think to your question that, even how do we adapt on the ground? So Seva is the path of the poor women. It is for the women themselves to learn and grow. There's nobody who comes and teaches or preaches. So there's no Seva without poor, without women, and without workers. And therefore, the need is to understand each in the context of various social, cultural, economic, and political background, understand different viewpoints, and continue understanding in their totality. We do believe in Seva, which also means service of our members, but at the same time, understanding the rightfulness, think between the right cause and the wrong cause, and not follow blindly. So I think that is what makes Seva relevant. And that is why Seva has grown from an organization into a confluence of three major movements: women's movement, workers' movement, cooperative movement, movements for democratic finance, movement for socialized institutions, and movement to transfer our economy that benefits all the time. Thank you.
One of the sources of tension that sometimes emerges in social justice movements here in the United States is one between the people outside a community and the people inside a community. Now, from your remarks, I think it should already be clear to this audience that that notion, even of the inside-outside, doesn't obtain in the same way to Seva. Nevertheless, there are, of course, distinctions between the people in the villages working in certain sectors, those in the cities working in other ways. And I wondered if you could talk us through an example, for instance, if you'd like, of how you ensure that ideas for how to proceed in a particular situation, be it the introduction of solar pumps or something like that, is really coming from the community and taking on board all of the different kinds of constituencies who are working in your organization.
Thank you. And we are very often asked this question, but 2/3 of Seva's membership is today rural. So out of the 2.5 million, about 2/3 of our members are rural. And in order to increase the collective strength or the bargaining power of the rural members, there's surplus of labor and less of employment opportunities, and therefore you have to create alternative opportunities. Whereas in the urban areas, the migrant workers from the rural areas come and work as casual workers. So I think what is really very important is that Seva has a very decentralized structure. We're like a banyan tree. So the trunk is the parent and the leaves are our 2.5 million members. Depending on the needs of our members, I think, we start programs which then become the branches, which become, the organizations in itself and take roots. So we complement and supplement each other. So very often we are asked that, what is the business model? How do you work with your rural members and the urban members? What are your strategy? What's your strategy and more? And we keep continuously growing at 15 to 20% growth in our membership year on year. And therefore, we do have plans. It's not that we just work the way haphazardly and, without any plans or without any outcomes or, measuring any indicators. But I think the needs or the demands come from our members, and the plans also therefore are prepared based on what are the needs of our members. So I think the core of Seva is our members. All the plans revolve around our members' lives. They tell, the members perform, we just facilitate. And I think we listen to the demands of our members and then design programs around it. So the members feel that their issues are heard. They can come and express freely. And that increases the involvement, the participation. There's a strong sense of ownership and belongingness. And very often, they feel that Seva is our family. It's like being at a parent's home where they can freely come and express their needs. And I think this is what brings the solidarity and the sisterhood, that, you are a family.
Any organization, and especially one as large as yours, inevitably faces sources of conflict within the organization, people who have different ideas about how to handle things. And again, I would love to hear a little bit more, maybe from Sakhi-Ben as well, about how, even in a just day-to-day kind of way, you resolve differences between yourselves, and how, for example, in being a master trainer, knowledge is conveyed to people who maybe are resistant because they've done things a certain way forever, and why should they take up a new way? How do you handle the conflict within the organization or on the ground within the community?
એટલે કે અમારા મેન વસ્તુ તો અમારી સેવામાં એમ કે અમે બધા એક સમાન છીએ. કોઈના એમ કે સાહેબ નહીં, બધી જ બહેનો એક જ સમાન, એમ નહીં કોઈ ભેદભાવ. એટલે એવો પ્રશ્ન બહુ આવતા જ નથી. પરંતુ જ્યારે કોઈ અમને એવું કહે કે તમે આ જે તાલીમ આપવા આવો છો તો એનાથી અમને એમ કે આ વસ્તુ અમારે નથી શીખવી, પરંતુ એના માટે અમે એક ડેમો પ્રેક્ટિકલ કરીએ છીએ. કે કોઈ પણ વસ્તુ ના સમજતા હોય તો એના માટે અમે જે કદાચ અમારા 100 સભ્ય બહેનો છે તો એના માટે અમે ગામમાં એક ડેમો બનાવી કે અમે જે તાલીમ આપી રહ્યા છીએ એ ડેમોની અંદર અમે આવી વસ્તુઓ ઉપયોગ કરી રહ્યા છીએ. જો તમારે એ વસ્તુનો ઉપયોગ કરવો હોય તો તમે અમે એમને વિઝિટ કરાવશું, અને જ્યારે એમનું રિઝલ્ટ મળે છે તો ઓટોમેટિક અમારી જોડે જોડાય છે. એટલે અમારે આવો કોઈ એવો પ્રશ્ન રહેતો નથી.
She says that at Seva, we all are sisters. There is no hierarchical difference that she is higher, she is lower. We are all the same. Nobody is a boss and nobody is a subordinate, but everybody is equal. And when there is equality, when you put others in the front and you are at the back, then I think very little differences or very little conflicts arise, because a true leader at Seva is the one who listens to the needs or issues of the others and not they go on working for themselves. Very often when we go as master trainers, sometimes they don't listen also because they feel that, oh, I have been practicing it for generations. Now, what difference this is? But in such cases, seeing is believing. So I may go and say something, and an elder woman may not like what I said, but we do demonstrations and in their villages, in the neighboring villages, or we do exposure visits. And when they see it for themselves, that how it changed, how the change in the practice brought about a change in their incomes or in their losses, then I think gradually they start adopting. So, but we see very little conflicts. There may be differences in views, but no conflicts because we all believe in equality. We are all the same. And I also would add to Sakhiben that at Seva, we have complete freedom. So that's why, we are very informal, but at the same time, we are very formal as well. So everybody has the freedom to bring in new ideas, which help in strengthening the solidarity. So bring new thoughts and ideas, not to create confusion or disorders, but how do you contribute to the growth of Seva? How does it help in strengthening the solidarity and sisterhood? So one thing which is so different at Seva is that, there is one Seva, but multiple visions. So a Seva in Assam may work on a different vision because the issues or the needs would be very different. And very often, many get surprised and wonder how this is possible. But, that is what a joint action of union and cooperatives, struggle and development, yet both go together. A bank of the poor, simplicity of the wealthy and the educated. And I think that is what helps us in resolving the conflicts. And the strong sense of ownership. So Seva is not me, or Seva is not one person, but Seva is, so millions and millions of women, and they design and they work. And therefore, I think, to give you a very concrete example, what Sakhiben mentioned about the Trade Facilitation Center or Rudy, but we also work in the region, in the neighboring countries in South Asia. And we call it as our SAARC Business Association of Home-Based Workers, SABA. And at the SAARC summit, they were having their own little place. And the prime ministers of India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal went to those women to their booth. And when they asked Rani Ben, one of our shareholders, that, where are you from? I think her immediate response was that we are from Sabah. She didn't say that I was from India and she's from Nepal and she's from Bhutan, but they all felt a sense of oneness, collectiveness, and they were very happy and deeply involved in sharing their culture, commonalities, their struggles. So I think it very clearly demonstrated that it's women to women learning, knowledge sharing that leads to sisterhood and solidarity. And I think that has helped Seva not just work in India, but we also work in the region. So we have a Seva now in Afghanistan. We have Seva in Sri Lanka, where we work with the conflict-affected women as well. And that is how we work on women, work, and peace. We also have HomeNet in South Asia, which organizes the home-based workers.
One of the things that I'm hearing from you echoes something another of your colleagues told me, which is that when people are working toward a concrete goal and when they can see the actual results, as Sakhiben was saying, it helps obviate conflict because it's right there. There's a tangibility to it. And yet also listening to you, it's abundantly clear that there's a strong philosophical and really moral grounding to the work that you do. That grounding is in Gandhian principles. Could you talk a little bit about how you incorporate the Gandhian ideals into your daily practice?
એમનો પ્રશ્ન એવો છે મેં અત્યાર સુધી સેવાનું જે બધું સાંભળ્યું
કે અમે પેલું તો એ કે અમે બધા એમ કે સંપીને રહી છીએ સેવાની અંદર, અને બીજું એ કે અમે કોઈ દિવસ ભેદભાવ નથી રાખતા કે કોણ કઈ જ્ઞાતિનું છે કે કઈ જ્ઞાતિમાંથી આવે છે. અમારા માટે બધી જ બહેનો સરખી છે, એમ એક સમાન બધાને હક મળવો જોઈએ. પછી કે અમારું સેવાનું મૂળ હેતુ એવું છે કે જે ગરીબ બેન છે એને રહેવા માટે મકાન મળે, એને આરોગ્યમાં જે સુવિધા મળી હોય એ મળે, અને એના બાળકોને એમ કે ભણાવી પણ શકે. એટલા માટે અમારા સેવાના જે 11 સવાલો છે એ અમારી બેનને સુધી મળી રહે, એ અમારો મેન હેતુ હોય છે. એટલે અમે ગાંધી વિચાર ઉપર એ વધારે એમ કે ભાર આપીએ છીએ.
So what you asked about how do we practice Gandhian values in our day-to-day working, and as we told earlier also that we are all equal at Seva, no matter what caste, community or religion we may be belonging to. At Seva, we all come together as women, as workers and as poor. Everybody is equal at Seva. And the main goal, therefore, is that how do you achieve full employment for our members? And we continuously keep measuring that using the 11 questions that the women themselves have laid out. And that itself shows that whether Seva is moving towards achieving its goals or not. And that is how I believe that how we follow the Gandhian values and principles in organizing at Seva. To add to what Sakhiban just said and what our founder has always taught us is that poverty is society's disrespect for human labor. And also that women know that productive work is the thread that weaves a society together. And therefore, she said that peace is restoring the balance in the society. And as long as Seva continues doing that, I think when people and communities organize their own structures, and that's what we do at Seva under the banyan tree. There's decentralized production, there's decentralized distribution. We encourage asset formation and ownership, build capacities, provide social security, and encourage full participation and give voice. Then I think it becomes a very nurturing organization. And I think we also feel that for change to be real, it has to come from within the members, which is the people. It cannot be trickled down, or it cannot be imported by someone from outside, or it cannot be also imposed. And as Ila Bhatt, our founder, said that she learned this by doing from and with Seva members. And this is what we feel is Gandhian, that, how do you put members first and in the center? And therefore, at Seva, we follow the values and principles in organizing: truth, simplicity, non-violence, equal respect to all religion. So we are not Gandhian, but we do not claim that we are a Gandhian organization at all. And we try to understand Gandhiji not by reading or, from his ideas or words, but how do you practice it and experience it yourself? So to follow, as Sakhiban was saying, that, the members themselves have to follow first and not impose, and accept and welcome everyone as they are, respect all equally, whether it's an individual or a thought or a product. And I think in order to be focused on our goal, which is fighting poverty, this is also Gandhian idea that how do you fight poverty? It is very important to understand the lives of the poor, and therefore at Seva, even today, 80% of our organizers come from our membership. It's only 20% are people like me who may not be from the members themselves. And this makes us grounded in the reality and the values that, Seva has to. And I think the second important principle that we at Seva have, touchwood, until today been able to follow is that, our remuneration is in the ratio of 1:4, which is the lowest paid to the highest paid, can be only 4 times more. So if you accept voluntary poverty, it makes you, therefore again, you are either committed and passionate to what the organization believes. And therefore, we have organizers who live and work with the members. Sometimes maybe you don't attract the best of the talent from the market, but it makes the organization move at the pace of the members. You're not driven by a donor's agenda or a project cycle, but you move at the pace of the members. So I think these are, and therefore we accept philosophical differences as well.
I have one last question before opening it to the audience, who I'm sure has many, many more questions to put to you both. I've been struck, and I'm sure many of you have too, about the ways in which some of the values that you've just outlined, and of course the figure of Gandhiji in particular, has been challenged in recent years from the left and the right in various ways. And I'm wondering how the climate in which you are sustaining these principles, the changes in that climate have placed pressures on your organization and your work, and how you are navigating upholding these principles at a time when they are under siege in fresh ways.
કે અમારા જે બહેનો છે, અમારી જે સેવા સાથે જોડાયેલી બહેનો છે, એ ગામડાની એક ગરીબ બેન છે કે જેને પોતાની રોજગારીની જરૂર છે. એમ કે એ બહેનો અમારી સાથે જોડાયેલી છે કે ના કે કોઈ એમ કે રાજકીય પક્ષની અંદર જોડાયેલો હોય. જે ગરીબ બેન છે અને જેને પોતાને એમ કે જે પોતાની અંદર કારીગરી તો છે, પણ એનામાંથી એ રોજગારી કેવી રીતે લાવી શકે, એવી બહેનોનું અમારું ખુદનું સંગઠન છે. અમે તો એક અમારું ઈલાબેનને જેમ અમને એવો એમ કે મજબૂત બનાવે છે કે અમારું સંગઠન ક્યારે પણ ના તૂટે. એટલે અમે એકબીજાની એમ કે સાંકળ બનીને જ રહી છીએ. એટલે અમારા સંગઠનમાં એવું કોઈ નથી આવતું કે અમે ક્યારે પણ એમ કે જુદા થઈ શકીએ. અને અમારો મેન એક કે અમારી ઓળખ પણ છે કે અમે કોટનના જ કપડાં પહેરી ગમે ત્યારે જશું તો અમારી જોડે અમારો જે ખાદી છે એ જ અમારે પહેરેલ હશે. એટલે ગમે ત્યાં નીકળશું તો પણ ખબર પડશે કે આ સેવાની બેન જાય છે.
So, Mayaben, to your question, I think Sakhiben says that we are all poor women workers, and we have come together to fight poverty so that everybody has sustained work and income in their hands. And it is only those women who are there. We are not here. We don't have members who are very, economically they are well-to-do, or who are very rich, or who are politically very active. But and also it is very clear to each and every member of Seva that we do not align in electoral politics, and therefore I think it has made us remain the way we are till today. And I think we understand and we empathize with each other as poor, and therefore we have built a very strong chain of women who would never be broken. And we have our own identity. Like you would see that all members or leaders of Seva would always be wearing khadi, which is hand spun, hand woven, and that gives us the identity that wherever you meet them, they would be identified that, oh, she's a Seva leader or she's a Seva member. And I think that is what has made us stand firm, no matter the winds may blow from any direction. And we are hopeful that we will still continue to remain together as well. And I would just add that, of course, we understand the differences, but we try to build consensus amongst our members. And we move forward to remove poverty, each and every member. So we invest a lot in members' education. 2.5 million members, but still, that is what is our biggest effort, that how much you invest in your members' education so that, they themselves understand that Seva is here to build equality for women, to increase income for their families and for themselves. And therefore, at Seva, we take a family as a unit of organizing, but under women's leadership. We accept different approaches. Some may work individually, some may work collectively. Some think that campaign is a good approach. Some may feel, development is the right approach. But, all approaches are welcome as long as they help a woman worker fight poverty. We accept all approaches, but we follow common values and principles. So as Sakhiben said, each and every member knows that the day she is lured away by a political party, she ceases to be a member of Seva. And so we do believe in political action, but not aligned with A or B political party. So we have all religion prayers at Seva. We all wear khadi, but there's no compulsion and nothing to practice forcefully. And I think until we have our values, which we have been able to maintain and sustain, Seva hopefully will be able to withstand the forces and the kind of pressures. We have gone through pressures, strong pressures, It's not recent, even 2 decades ago. But I think every time the organization emerged stronger, because I think the members really understand. But I think for us, the challenges are even more bigger. Like the climate is a big challenge that we face. And the other challenge that we face is that, how do you strengthen the climate action by women? What is data? How can data be the new tool to strengthen and increase the bargaining power of the members? And building and operating a poor women's organization has never been easy. And but it is the right thing to do, and we believe in it, and we hope we will continue.
We certainly share your hopes. We have a little time for questions. I assume some microphones will be going around.
There are actually microphones at
they're on the tables, of course. Right.
So if you have a microphone at your table, you can just hit the button on there and that'll allow you to ask your question. So Maya lets you call on people's questions.
Okay, sure. This table here.
Sachiben,
And please just introduce yourself.
is this on? Oh, sorry, Aji. Rima Ben, Sachiben, Maya Ben. તમારે માટે એક જ વર્ડ છે વાવ. બધા વાહ. હવે તમારી સેવા અમે કેમ કરી શકું? How can we serve you?
કે અમે તો અમારામાં જે અમારા દેશમાં જે થઈ રહ્યું છે એની સામે તો અમે બધું એમ કે કરી છે. તમારી જોડે પણ કંઈક નવું હોય કે જે અમે અમારી બહેનો સુધી પહોંચાડી શકી તો એ પણ તમે અમને મદદ કરી શકો કે જે અમારી બહેનોને એમ કે એ મદદ મળે.
Ajit bhai, to your I don't know, it's a question or a suggestion, but she's saying that we've been trying to do whatever we can based on our understanding to fight poverty in our own country. But whatever can help us accelerate, please share that knowledge or, those kind of experiences where we can accelerate our fight against poverty. And that will be a big help.
The back.
Hi, my name is Ispan. I'm so happy to be here. And it's an auspicious day to have this conversation. This happens to be anniversary of Buddha and Marx. And covertly, I didn't know both Tarun and Hiteshwar Buddhist and Marxist at the same time. But your jig is up, guys. So I've been following Seva. I've been following Seva for almost 45 years. One of my close friends and my roommate, Renana Javada, joined Seva in 78 or 79, something like that. And one of the things that theoretically and practically I've been interested in Seva's work is that democracy at home and democracy at work is one of the most crucial things that none of the societies have actually, whether it is in US. So at home and work, we spend most of our time, but we don't have democracy. But Seva's model actually sort of has a possibility of doing that. And I think that is one of the reasons it has been sustainable. And I think it will go another 50 years if it continues on that. So I want to really congratulate you for that. But I also have one sort of a warning. We had to really educate a lot of our young folks here who were donating during pandemic to Seva International, thinking it was Seva, which is a front for RSS. So I wish you best and hope another 50 years of success. Thank you.
The other audience questions.
Maya, I can also add as well that if there's anyone on the virtual call on the webinar, if you want to write in your questions using the Q&A feature, we can then read those out as well. So we'll take some more in the room as well, but we can also take virtual questions.
Me. My boss told me it was on. Marty Chen, and I've had the great honor of working very closely with Seva since goodness, 45 years. And I just wanted to say two things. One is the question that Maya had about how do you make sure that the members' needs and demands are being met? Because of the trade union structure, every member of Seva is a member of the union, and more particularly of a trade group. And then the trade groups meet on a monthly basis and discuss what's happening in their locale that needs to be addressed. So the whole structure from the bottom up really creates that opportunity. And then in terms of the Gandhian values, just an illustration. Seva starts every meeting with a round of secular ecumenical prayers and song. And there was a particular crisis in Ahmedabad with 500 plus street vendors had been evicted very summarily from an area that was a historic host to make way for a heritage plaza. And some of the vendors were Seva members, some were not, some were from other communities and men. So Seva formed a market committee that included its own members, but also other vendors. And they were meeting to go through the list of the vendors in that area, and they needed to call the list. So if there were two brothers, there should only be one brother who gets the spot if they get weak. And they had one of their ecumenical prayer sessions. And one of the men who had been resistant to this collective effort said at the end of the meeting, I could tell how sincere the Seva organizers were when they sang Muslim prayer in the morning. And therefore, I am happy to go along with this of calling members. So it's very much in practice.
I might just piggyback one thing on that. I didn't get a chance to ask you which initiative or project you're most excited about right now? We hear a lot about the challenges of the climate, of course, at the forefront.
It's very difficult to say one project because we work in almost 18 states in India. We work in different countries as well. But I think what excites us the most is the climate action work, because whether you're working or talking about street vendors or home-based workers or working in the fields or in the salt pans in the forest, and I think the climate change and its impact on health, on livelihood, and how do you build resilience of your members. And I think that calls for our bank also to think of designing new products, new instruments to work at the policy level as well. So I think all across, so that's one thing which the whole organization is gearing towards. And as Sakiben very briefly mentioned, is we call it as our Swachh Akash campaign. How do we build cleaner skies for the future members so that Seva is able to celebrate 100 years, if not me, but Sakiben and many more Sakibens can definitely celebrate 100 years. I think the second is how do you build center of excellence on data, because I'm sure that's going to become a new tool to increase the collective strength and the bargaining power of our members. So health and wellness, climate action, and data are the three new areas which are very exciting and challenging both for Seva. But the most exciting is that we have to reach 4 million members in the next 3 years that our members have challenged. And so that's what we have to gear for.
We have time for one more. Salman, is there any on the chat from the webinar?
Not currently.
Okay. Please.
Thank you so much. This is very, very nice and inspiring to hear, actually. My name is Ashish. I grew up in India, and my mother's been a diehard, Seva committed customer and all for the last 50 years or so. So my question is, I have lots of questions, but I think I'll just pick one, which is you have a lot of ambitious programs that you're putting in place around climate, around data, as you're suggesting. How do you see the role of the private sector in what you're doing, and how do you see the role of the government? Because both of those, in India, obviously there's a lot of tension around where the government puts resources, the private sector sort of off on its own. How do you align them with where you're going?
I forgot to mention that, but poor alone cannot do anything on their own, and that too when you have to work at 4 million members, building resilience against climate shocks and market shocks as well. And that's where partnerships play a big role. So we do believe in partnerships both with the private sector as well as with the government, but on our terms. And very often we don't speak the language of the private sector, but the private sector also needs to learn the language of the informal sector. And as our founder always told, that when 93% of the country's workforce is in the informal, we are the mainstream. So how does the private sector learn to partner with the mainstream of the economy? And so we do work with the private sector, both in trainings, in education, in bringing in technology, in carbon markets as well. How do we partner with the private sector so that the biodigesters become affordable, or the solar pumps become affordable for the poor, so that, the carbon credits come to these workers and therefore the technology becomes affordable. So there are different ways on which we partner. We do partner with the government for policy action because we do have to work on policy advocacy. For the last 20 years, we don't take resources from the government, but we do partner with the government for policy action and for policy advocacy.
So Marty had referred to the songs that you begin each day with, and I know you wanted to share one with us, so we'll conclude with that.
He has one comment to make and then we'll say.
ખાલી મારે અંતમાં એટલું જ કેવું છે કે હું પણ એમ કે હાર્વર્ડની ગ્રેજ્યુએટ છું, કેમ કે અમારા જે ઈલાબેન છે એમને પણ અહીંયાથી હાર્વર્ડની જે ડોક્ટરેટ જે ડિગ્રી મળી હતી અને એ જે અમારા ઈલાબેન હતા એમના જોડે કશું ના રાખતા, કેમ કે એમનું જે મળેલું એ અમારું ને અમારી જોડે હોય એમનું. એટલે આજે અમને ગર્વ થાય છે કે અમે 25 લાખ જે બહેનો છીએ એ હરેક બેન ઈલાબેન છે, એટલે અમને 25 લાખ બહેનોને આજે જે હાર્વર્ડ યુનિવર્સિટીની જે ગ્રેજ્યુએટ ડિગ્રી છે અમે પણ ગણી શકીએ કે અમને પણ મળેલી છે.
She's making a tall claim and she says, in the end, I only want to share with you that I'm also a Harvard graduate. It's because our founder, Ela Bhatt, was also awarded a doctorate and she never took anything for herself. And she also dedicated it to Seva. So all our 2.5 million members are Harvard graduates. So I want to just say that. Thank you. So we'll always end with a song. As Martiban said, all our meetings begin with a prayer, but I was warned by my family and by my organization that you are there only to invite it to speak. Don't overtake the whole show. So I was trying to be really very, very polite and contained, but we always end with a song. So maybe. અમે પાર કરીશું, અમે પાર કરીશું, અમે પાર કરીશું એક દિન. ઓ ઊંડા અંતરમાં અમને છે વિશ્વાસ, અમે પાર કરીશું એક દિન. Thank you.
Arms out!
Hey, hey.
Arms out!